I'm 77 years old, and I spent most of my life being angry. Not loud, shouting all the time angry, not the kind people point at and say, "He's got a problem." Mine was quieter than that. It sat in my chest like a tight knot. It followed me into rooms. It came home with me at night and slept beside me like it belonged there. And I let it. I didn't think of it as anger back then. I thought of it as being right, as having standards, as not letting people walk over me. That's how I explained it to myself. Now, I know better.
That's all this is. Just something I should have said years ago. These days are slow. I wake up early, even when I don't need to. My body doesn't let me sleep the way it used to. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent. There's a chair by the window where I sit most mornings. I don't read much anymore. I just look out. People pass by, cars come and go. Life continues, like it always does. It's a strange feeling, watching the world move forward when you know you're almost done with it. I think a lot now, more than I used to, and when you sit still long enough, the past doesn't stay quiet. It comes back. Not all at once, just pieces. A conversation you don't remember finishing. A face you haven't seen in years. A moment you didn't realize mattered. And for me, most of those memories carry the same thing. That tightness, that resistance, that anger I held onto like it was protecting me. I used to think anger made me strong. Now I see it just made me alone. I wasn't always like this, or at least I don't think I was. In my 20s, I was hopeful, I suppose. I had plans, a steady job, a small place that felt like a beginning. I wasn't rich, but I didn't think much about that. I worked hard, long hours. I believed that was the right thing to do. You show up, you do your job, you don't complain. That's what I was taught. And when things didn't go the way I expected, I didn't know how to deal with it. The first time I remember it clearly was at work. I had been passed over for a promotion. Someone younger got it, less experienced. At least that's how I saw it. I didn't say much at the time. I shook hands, nodded, went back to my desk. But something settled inside me that day. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It just stayed. I told myself I had been treated unfairly, and maybe I had. I'm not saying I was wrong, but I didn't let it go. That was the part that mattered. I carried it home with me, sat with it at dinner, let it shape the way I spoke to people. Small things started to bother me more than they should have. A comment that felt dismissive, a delay that felt intentional, a mistake that I couldn't ignore. And I reacted, not always loudly, but sharply, enough that people noticed, enough that it started to become normal. I got married in my early 30s. She was patient. I remember that clearly. Patient in a way I didn't understand at the time. She would listen when I talked about work, about frustrations, about how things weren't right. She didn't argue much. She just listened. Sometimes she would say, "Maybe it's not as bad as it feels." And I didn't like that. It felt like she wasn't taking my side. So I would get quiet, distant, sometimes cold. Not shouting, not throwing things, just withdrawing. I thought I was keeping the peace. What I was really doing was building a wall, one piece at a time. We had a son a few years later. I remember holding him for the first time. That part is still clear. Small, fragile, completely unaware of anything except being held. I thought that would change me. I really did. And for a while, maybe it softened things. I tried to be present. I tried to be better. But anger doesn't disappear just because something good happens. It waits. And then it comes back in small ways. A long day at work. a bill that arrives at the wrong time, a house that feels too noisy when you just want quiet. I started losing my patience more often, not in ways that felt extreme at the time, just short answers, a raised voice, walking away when I should have stayed. I told myself it was normal, that everyone gets frustrated. And maybe that's true, but I didn't see how often it was happening. I didn't see what it was doing. There are moments that come back to me now that didn't seem important then. My son standing in the doorway holding something he wanted to show me. A drawing, I think. I was busy, or tired, or annoyed about something else. I said, "Not now." He stood there for a second longer, then walked away. That's it. Nothing dramatic, but I remember it now in a way I didn't then, because I can't remember how many times that happened, just that it did, again and again. My wife and I started arguing more as the years went on. Not big fights, not the kind people talk about, just constant tension. She would bring up small things, the way I spoke, the way I reacted, and I would defend myself. Every time. I always had a reason. Work was stressful, money was tight, people were difficult. There was always something. I thought I was explaining myself. What I was really doing was refusing to look at it, refusing to admit that maybe the problem wasn't everything else. Maybe it was me. But that's a hard thing to see when you've spent years believing you're right. Time moved the way it always does, quietly, without asking. My son grew up. I didn't notice when he stopped coming to me with things. I didn't notice when our conversations became shorter. I told myself that's just how it goes. Kids grow up. They become independent. And there's truth in that. But there's also distance that doesn't have to happen. I didn't know the difference. Or maybe I didn't want to. The turning point didn't come as a big moment. It rarely does. It came in pieces. First, my wife got sick. Nothing dramatic at first, just tired more often, less energy. We went to doctors, tests, waiting. I was frustrated, not at her, at the situation, at how slow everything was, at how little control I had, and I carried that frustration with me. Even then, even there. I thought I was holding things together, but I wasn't really there the way I should have been. Not fully, not calmly, not the way she needed. There was a night in the hospital I remember clearly. She was awake, looking at me. Not angry, not upset, just tired. And she said, "You don't have to fight everything." That's what she said. Simple, quiet. And I didn't know how to respond, because I had been fighting everything for so long, I didn't know any other way to be. I nodded. I said something like, "I know." But I didn't. Not yet. She passed away a few months later, and the house became quiet in a different way. Not peaceful, empty. That's when things started to become clear. Not all at once, just slowly, like something coming into focus after being blurred for years. I started noticing what was missing. Not just her, but the version of us that could have existed. The conversations we didn't have, the moments I cut short, the times I chose to be right instead of kind. You can't go back and fix those things. That's the part no one prepares you for. You can see it clearly. You can understand it completely. And it doesn't change anything. My son visits sometimes. He has his own life now, a family, responsibilities. He's polite, respectful, but there's a distance there. Not cold, just like he's learned how to be around me without getting too close. And I understand why. I taught him that, over years, without realizing it. I think about all the time I spent being angry, all the moments I believed I was justified, And maybe I was sometimes. Life isn't always fair. People do disappoint you. Things don't go the way you expect. But holding on to that anger, it doesn't fix anything. It just changes you, slowly, until you don't recognize what you've become. And by the time you see it clearly, most of the moments that mattered are already gone. There are things I would say now if I could go back. Not big speeches, just small things. I'm sorry. I was wrong. That doesn't matter as much as I thought it did. I'm here. Simple things, the kind that don't feel urgent in the moment, but they are. If you're listening to this, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't think it works that way. People change when they're ready, or when they have to. I wasn't ready, and by the time I had to, it was too late to change what had already happened. But maybe you're somewhere in the middle, not at the end, not yet. And maybe there's something in your life right now that feels important to hold on to, something that feels like it deserves your anger. Maybe it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying be careful with how long you carry it, because it doesn't stay contained. It spreads into your words, your tone, your silence.